Hello, everybody. Thank you for attending the session. I got a prime time today, right? Last day of the session, lunchtime. So let's talk about VMware HCX. My name is Caio Oliveira, been at VMware about 7 years now. I'm a principal multi-cloud architect, and I'm based in São Paulo, Brazil, right? So today we're gonna talk about HCX. We're gonna talk about especially design best practice. Probably at the end of the session, I might have some minutes for you to have questions or any comments. Oh, issues here? Oh, okay. So yeah, got it. So the required disclaimer, right? I think you saw a lot of that during the during the week. But quick agenda for today's session. I will go really quick on the VMware Cloud overview. I think you're overwhelmed with what is VMware Cloud. And then I will do just a basic understanding of HCX and then explaining how HCX fits well in a multi-cloud environment. Just for your reference, a lot of the majority of things that I'm discussing here is actually part of the HCX Multicloud best practice guide. I wrote this guide together with Tim Jones from the product marketing inside the HCX BU. So if you're interested, much more content and information related to that, you can download. This is free. It's a white paper that I wrote like I think was released around February, March this year. So pretty much really well updated. So talking about VMware Cloud, what is VMware Cloud actually is a way for you to run any build, manage, connect, and protect any application in any cloud. So depending if you are talking about your on-premise data center or talking about VMware Cloud on AWS, Azure VMware Solution, Google Cloud, all of our VCBP partners, right? So actually is the complete portfolio for your multi-cloud journey. I think you heard a lot of multi-cloud today, our main theme for this year. And what's the idea of VMware Cloud on any cloud? You have your on-prem data center, like with your SDDC, with your VMware Cloud Foundation, and you got the same experience on any of the clouds, any of the hyperscalers, or any of our VCPP partner infrastructure. You're gonna have the same experience, so the same vSphere, same NSX, same vSAN that you have, of course, with our now the new area, right? So area for all the automation operations piece. So, and one of the big advantages that we see that you also have access to the specific hyperscaler native services, right? So, but one of the most important services that you need on top of that when you're building your multi-cloud or even your single cloud, starting with a single cloud, is the migration, right? How I migrate my workloads from my data center to the cloud. So is when their HCX is the tool for that. So HCX is our mobility tool, right, to do that. HCX has a lot of other features, but is primary use for migration purposes. So use cases here that we have with HCX, of course, the biggest ones is when you're doing migration from your data center to the cloud. We definitely are starting to see some customers that are moving back from the cloud, so definitely another possibility. So I have a colleague of mine that always tells a joke that one of the big benefits of our cloud is that we are not Hotel California. We let you get in, check in, but we also let you check out as well. So if you have your VMs on the cloud and for any specific case you need to come back to a data center, definitely possible. Or a big use case that we are seeing right now is the possibility for you to migrate between our VMware clouds using HCX. So for example, if you created or if you migrated some applications for, let's say, VMware Cloud on AWS, then potentially tomorrow you want to migrate part of it or the entire or evacuate VMware Cloud on AWS and go to Azure VMware Solution, that's a possibility as well, right? So one of the big use cases that we are currently seeing. Of course, we started seeing that when we started with the cloud services more towards use case number 1, but now use case number 2 and especially use case number 3 is getting a lot of traction. And what service HCX provide? Of course, the first one is create the hybrid connectivity, as you say, is the possibility for you to migrate from one data center to another, right? Especially when you're running this over the internet, like sometimes latency, bandwidth are challenges. So that's why we have embedded into the services what we call the one optimization, is a dedicated appliance that will help accelerate the migration, right? And then we have actually four types of migration. We have the traditional one, the cold migration, that you can power off a virtual machine and migrate that from a source to a destination, right? This is the basic one, but we have also a more advanced ones. The first one is we have vMotion, right? We have vMotion from years now, and you have the possibility to do a vMotion migration from your data center to the cloud. So no need for you to power off and power on the specific virtual machine. The problem here is that you have to do one by one. So when you are doing you can schedule, for example, 5 VMs to be live migrated, but it will be like in a serialized way, right? If you want to move several virtual machines at once, you can use bulk migration. Bulk migration, pretty much they will replicate all the data to the destination, and then we'll perform a power off, power on the virtual machine, right? So you have a little bit of the downtime when you're using bulk migration, but the advantage is that you can migrate much more VMs at once, right? Instead of one by one, by live migration, you can migrate more than one. And you have the combination of both. That's what we call the replication-assisted vMotion migration. Pretty much is the combination of a vMotion and bulk migration. So we export the data, we replicated the data first, and then we do the live migration only for the differentiated data and also the memory when we are doing the live migration, right? One of the huge benefits of the platform is the possibility to avoid you to need to change your IP addressing. So instead of changing the IP addressing when you're moving to the cloud, that's really common when you're doing what the hyperscalers say lift and shift, because actually it's not lift and shift in my opinion, because you actually need to create a new virtual machine, is a new hypervisor. I think we are the only one that have a true lift and shift possibility, that we leverage HCX for that, because we can extend the network. So the same IP address that you have on your data center, you can extend the network to your cloud, perform the migration, and then potentially decide to break the networking station and move the default gateway to the cloud, right? So a lot of possibilities. We also have the disaster recovery, and what is really interesting is the OS assisted migration, right? Everything that I taught before was VMware or vSphere virtual machines, right? But if you have, for example, virtual machines that are in Red Hat or any other operation system, of course, not any other, there's a list of the ones that's supported, you can perform what we call the assisted OS assisted migration. So doesn't necessarily need to be a VMware virtual machine for you to migrate, right? So HCX for multi-cloud, as I mentioned, you have now the possibility to migrate your VMs whatever you want, right? Simple scenario, when you are building your multi-cloud strategy, right? Definitely a really important point. One of the good things about HCX is pretty much available as part of the core services on all of our offerings. So VMC, AVS, GCV, OCVS, HCX is part of the core services. You don't need to pay add-ons, right? And then with that, you can migrate your apps to the cloud on demand, the time that you want, right? big advantage, right? You have the same mechanism, the same feature in all the clouds, so it's not different between all the clouds because it runs on top of the services, right? So same way that you have the same experience with vSphere on-prem, vSphere on the clouds, and NSX on-prem and NSX on the clouds, here is the same way, right? How is the HCX architecture, right? Like in a multi-level, you're gonna have an appliance in your data center, for example, is what we call HCX connector. It will connect directly to your vCenter service, and you have the exactly same thing on the cloud, right? On the cloud, you're gonna have your vCenter as well, and you're gonna have a HCX cloud. Both of them are part of the management, and on the management, you're gonna create what we call the HCX site pairing. So you're gonna pair, for example, here, your on-premise data center with whatever will be your choice, like VMware Cloud on AWS, Azure VMware Solution, or whatever. And this can run on top of any connectivity. So potentially you might have a direct connection between your environment, like a private direct connections, or you can be running over the internet, or even have a VPN or SD-WAN services. Doesn't matter. HCX will work on that, right? So this is on the management components, right? And then you're gonna have HCX interconnectivity services to provide exactly both network extension and the proper migration that I'm talking about, right? Just to get more deep dive on the components, right? I already explained what we call the HCX Connector Manager and the HCX Cloud Manager. Pretty much are the same. The only difference is that one runs in the cloud and the other runs in your data center. Then you have three main components. There are three appliances, right? You have the network extensions, the warm optimization, and the interconnect. So you're gonna have both, all the three, right, in each of the clouds. So you're gonna need on the source and also on the destination, right? And the network extension will connect using the UDP for 4500 port, and the same one will be used for the interconnect to create actually tunnels to perform all the migrations or all the extensions that are needed, right? Here is important. This is always on pairs. So for example, if you have a multi-cloud environment that you have not only one cloud, but many two clouds. For example, you have your on-prem environment and you have, I will use GCVE, Google Cloud VMware Engine, and Oracle Cloud VMware Solution, right? So you're gonna have actually duplicated because the pairing is always one by one, right? So you're gonna have one set of services that will be for your on-prem and GCVE, and another three components that will be between your on-prem services and Oracle in that case, right? The manager itself can be only one, is always only one, but the services that perform the services, you're gonna have two. So you have to, when you're designing your environment, you have to take care about the footprint of the solution, right? How is regarding the licensing and the services? We have two different kind of licensing. So the advanced pretty much covers all the main, the basic service. So you're gonna have the connectivity, you're gonna have networking extension, the WAM optimization. You can perform both the bulk migration. The code, of course, is not here, but is also on the advanced, and also the vMotion. But when you need more advanced features, like more enterprise features, I would say, like OS assisted vMotion, the replicate assisted vMotion, that's the combination between the network extension and the vMotion, it's on the enterprise license. You have also a few other more advanced that I will not be covering, but they are covered on the white paper that I showed before, right? Something that's, for me, I think is the main issue when you're talking about building or creating your multi-cloud environment is actually the multi-cloud networking, right? So where HCX will be on top of it. right? So here is one of the diagrams that I built for the white paper, right? When with some of the best practice that we worked together with customers and also with our BU to expose here. So first thing, like we always suggest when possible for you to have direct private connections from the public clouds to the cloud provider, right? So for example, if you have your data center, it's possible to use internet, but if you're enterprise, normally you're gonna be relying on a more private connectivity that you have guaranteed bandwidth, latency, redundancy that normally the internet cannot provide for you, right? This is the first big point. Another one that is possible as well, you could connect each one of those clouds directly to your data center, right? But in that case, your data center will be a bottleneck. So it will be the single point of failure. So what we suggest is actually for you to have a cloud exchange provider, and there's several of them. So for example, Equinix, Megaport, even Rackspace, they provide services that can connect the clouds and between them and also your data center. And the configuration, installation is pretty easy, right? So you can use and leverage those cloud exchange providers. Of course, it's a paid service, right? It's be an extra, but I think the advantage and the benefits of using that are extremely helpful for when you're building a multi-cloud environment, right? Another suggestion that we always have is actually to avoid overlapping IPs, especially because you can leverage HCX, the network extension between environments. So trying to avoid the same schema, the same IP. So for example, in this example here, I have for AWS, I have a 10, 100/16, for Azure, a 10, 110/16, and it goes on. So that would be important, especially if you are leveraging more advanced feature like mobility optimized networking, that you potentially can have your default gateway in different clouds, right? But if you have the same IP, that might be an issue that you cannot use or leverage one of the advanced features. So, and of course, potentially trying to summarize routes between environments, that would be good because this cloud exchange provider at the middle pretty much is like what we call like a big router, like what that will be exchanging BGP routes between the environments. So when you have summarized, using those kind of environments will facilitate potential troubleshooting and your operation, right? Cool. Another extremely important point and a good best practice is actually what is the possibility between your on-premise environment and all the clouds, right? When you pair HCX, your on-prem to the cloud, you can migrate to and from the cloud, as I mentioned, right? But you actually need to create the bidirectional pairing if you wanna, for example, extend a network from the cloud to your on-premise data center, right? We always suggest for you to create the pairings on both directions to perform migrations, right? And a big requirement is have the versions, so the HCX managers and the HCX appliances with the same versions, right? Here is a table explaining what you need to do. Pretty much out of the box, from your data center to all the clouds, you'll be able to have the bidirectional connection. And the only one that's an exception to act as a source is Google Cloud VMware Engine. It can, but you need to open a ticket because on the back end, Google Cloud VMware Engine has a proxy that you need to allow the connectivity to the other HCX managers to be able to create the pairing, right? So really important, but here is pretty much to give an example that every possibility that you want to migrate from any cloud to another is possible here, right? Another interesting point, especially if you are planning to do live migration, depending on the application that need to leverage, you have to be aware of the CPU capabilities of each of the clouds. So each of the clouds have different type of hosts, and those type of hosts have different family of CPUs, right? Here is the example that you might need to leverage EVC for that, right? Because I put it here. All the two hosts that we have for VMC, the i3 and also the hosts that we have available on OCVS, AVS, and GCVE, right? So if you're planning to have a virtual machine that will migrate to all the environments, and those virtual machines need to migrate to be tomorrow in one and like the next month in other. So, and you need to perform live migration, you definitely will be leveraging EVC. What is good is starting on the vSphere 6.7, I think update 3 if I'm not wrong, you have EVC per VM. You don't need to actually enable that directly in the cluster. You can do that per virtual machine, right? And I think here my biggest recommendation when you're starting to design your multi-cloud environment, be aware of when you are extending the networks to more than one destination, right? For example, here I have a data center, I have a VLAN 100, for example, and I want to extend to VMC and to AVS. You definitely can extend same VLAN because, for example, part of the workloads I want to land on VMC and the other part on AVS, right? Definitely totally possible. You can do that and then migrate the virtual machines. But HCX doesn't have embedded any, I would say, guardrails to avoid you creating loops when you're extending your networks, right? So please be careful if you need to migrate that virtual machine that landed, for example, on VMC to AVS, you definitely can do it, but not leveraging network extension, right? You need to manually use point-to-point to create those connectivities, right? So always be careful to avoiding creating loops that potentially can have some big effects on your environment, right? Just to finish here, this is actually my session. This video is from my session on the last event. So I will put it here. It's just an example of leveraging HCX. So for example, here I have a virtual machine that I will do a bulk migration in that case. So just opening here the terminal. This is like 168.55. So going to
VMware Cloud on AWS.
You can mute. Thank you. So I'm here entering on VMC. So on VMC, I don't have nothing on that folder. So I'm going to HCX. Then I go into migration. All the pairing, all the service meshes are created. So I will go to the migration. And now I will start migrating a virtual machine to that. So it will load all the pairings that I have available. So here I have all the pairings available between my data center or VMC to the cloud, right? I will select the virtual machine that I want to migrate. I will do bulk migration. And I will select what type of migration I want to do, for example, and where exactly I want that VM to land. Like, for example, here I chose the folder, choose the data store, and as the migration, I will use bulk. It already identified that in that case, I don't have any extension created, so I need to manually map what will be the destination network for that virtual machine. I can do a validation to see if there's any potential issues. So any issues regarding like CPU in the case of like vMotion will be pointed here, but in that case, it's bulk migration. So it will perform a power off and power on the virtual machine. So I'll hit go here, and then the HCX will start performing all the migration, right? Let me speed up here, just for you to avoid waiting for the entire virtual machine. to migrate. So when the migration is complete, right, I can now go back to my environment, and I don't see here on my environment the VMware anymore. Then I will open my vCenter on VMware Cloud on AWS, and now I see the VM here with the same IP, right? So we didn't change the IP, so the same IP that I have will be the same IP that I have here as well, right? So on the last minutes, I'd like to invite you. We have a new program running now that's called VMware Cloud Expert, dedicated for multi-cloud. It's a 4-day technical course that will covers hands-on experience together with my colleague from UK, Adam Bow. We built from scratch all this environment. So 4 days, really deep dive. We try to make it like 80% hands-on and 20% only covering the basics, right? So the targeting is pretty much leading application modernization and cloud platform architects that want to get hands-on on the solution. So pretty much in that case, VMC, AVS, GCVE are included, of course, and on-prem, you're going to have a dedicated on-prem environment. We have some upcoming classes coming. The next one will be in Atlanta in about 2 weeks. We have one in October that will be in Europe. And in November, we are targeting Austin or potentially Palo Alto for that, right? So with that, I thank you very much. Hope you could get something. As I mentioned, everything is covered on the white paper that I showed in the beginning. If you want the slides and also the link for, just send me an email. It's oliveirac@vmware.com. Thank you.